Hey everyone, I'm Megan, a Students for Life leader at University of Mary Washington with this week's Pro-Life Gen News. This week we'll be discussing in vitro fertilization and related issues. In vitro fertilization is one of the more difficult topics for the pro-life movement. We realize that someone watching this may know someone who has conceived a child using in vitro fertilization, may have conceived a child this way themselves, or was conceived this way. All life has human dignity, and your dignity is not affected by the way you were conceived. Instead, our moral dilemma comes from the way embryos that are not implanted are treated, as well as the way egg donors and others involved are treated. Because in vitro fertilization, or IVF, creates a new human life, instead of destroying one like abortion does, it is not always obvious why we should be concerned about it. But the way this new human life is created creates moral issues about the dignity of human life. You may have seen headlines like this one from Media Research Center about the woman who wanted to trade her embryos. She has a son already and found out her last embryo was female. Notice how we know the gender of an embryo, but some people want to deny that it is a human being. She then went online to try to trade embryos for a male embryo. The concept of trading people is ridiculous, but it's a moral problem made possible by in vitro fertilization. What is in vitro fertilization? IVF creates a new embryo by fertilizing an egg with sperm in a lab. The embryo is then implanted in a woman's womb. This can either be the woman who donated the eggs or a surrogate. So what's the problem? Because IVF is an expensive process and is generally only used when a couple has had trouble conceiving naturally, the doctor will often create a whole set of fertilized eggs to increase the chances that at least one will be successfully implanted. This means there will be numerous embryos, each a conceived life. Remember, we know that life begins at the moment of conception, so every embryo is a human life. What happens to each embryo? The embryos are screened for possible genetic disorders, but also for potential physical disabilities that can develop, and even gender. The embryos that are deemed unfit are destroyed, ending an innocent human life. Normally, an IVF practitioner transfers around 4 of the selected embryos into a woman's uterus. If more than one successfully implants, the doctor will kill off the other embryos. Since this issue is so fraught with ethical issues, we wanted to consult ethics and medical experts to see what some of them had to say about the issue of IVF and surrogacy. Jennifer Lahl, a pro-life nurse and founder of a bioethics think tank, told National Review this: "I would never ever describe surrogacy as pro-life. Surrogacy necessarily depends on assisted reproduction technology via in vitro fertilization, creating embryos in the lab. The loss of embryos from IVF is but one very real pro-life concern." Professor William Honeycutt, a professor of apologetics at Liberty University, had this to say: "Those who are truly committed to the principle that life begins at conception will want to take a deeper look at IVF. In addition to these concerns, there are issues with the way women can be exploited for their eggs. According to the documentary Eggsploitation, young women are being offered up to $100,000 for their eggs, but they have to undergo intensive medical exams and take regular fertility drugs. They are also at risk of a condition called ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. Remember, the procedure to extract the eggs is an unnatural process that involves putting extra drugs into someone's body." Take a look at an excerpt from the trailer for Eggsploitation.
If you're tall, attractive, physically fit, and have a desire to help, and what person doesn't want to see themselves that way?
And they made it seem like it was, destiny that this couple found me, and it was this whole big thing.
Everything that happened to me was a chain of events where certain medical risks were not taken into account.
And I made a decision to sell my eggs. That affected my ability to reproduce.
IVF is a difficult topic to discuss, but it's important that the pro-life movement understand the dangers of it, both to the embryo and to the egg donor. We understand the pain that comes from not being able to conceive naturally, and as science and research improve, there will likely be a day that we have an even stronger understanding of fertility and life-affirming fertility treatments that do not involve the destruction of embryos or human life. But for pro-lifers, IVF presents a moral issue. IVF almost always involves destroying innocent human life, while also presenting medical risks for the woman donating her eggs. Thank you for watching, and please continue to tune in as we discuss further difficult topics. If you have a topic you want discussed, comment below. I'm Megan with Pro Life Gen News. See you later.